All right, joining us now is international political analyst, and I'm going to say it again, international political analyst, Dr. Charles Sinkala. Charles, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, now the topic of discussion is international trade, or should I say Intra Africa trade. President Cyril Ramaphosa is pushing that. There's something about what he's pushing that doesn't pass the sniff test or the eye test. Now, he's nudging Nigeria to perhaps sign on to this deal. Buhari, on the other hand, says it's been on his desk for a while, that he's a military man, please forgive him, that it all appears okay, and now he will now get to signing it. Something doesn't seem right about this deal, especially on the surface. Now, Nigeria has a lot to lose when they enter such deals. Can you explain to us the game behind the game?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. One thing we must understand, I must actually accept and admit that President Cyril Ramaphosa has been very busy, you know, and which is very good. He's a businessman, and I like his interaction with the rest of the continent. You know, the challenges in Africa doing intra-Arab business is has been very, very clear that because of the involvement from these participating countries, I mean, the excuse by President Buhari that cannot be accepted, you know, where he says he's too busy as a military man or such excuses. But, you know, what is happening at the moment is Africa finds it very easy to sell their produces or raw materials or services outside Africa for more profits than selling within Africa. I'll give you an example. Nigeria finds it easy to export oil to the rest of the world instead of sending it to South Africa, you know, and these are the problems which we are facing. So as a result, South Africa has to buy oil from international world, you know, instead of getting it within Africa. You know, so there has been a lot of stringent conditions which hasn't been put in place for the participation of the African continent to do the intra.
Correct. In other words, a country like Nigeria really has nothing to benefit from signing this trade deal, correct?
It has a lot of things, you know, but except, you know, they do not look at it in a long-term solution, you know. One of the major potential of the intra-African trade is the boosting and the reduction of poverty, you know, and that way you industrialize Africa and create employment, and the cross-border business and markets in Africa to integrate the African continent, you know, it also will improve the infrastructure development, which is one of the hindrances in terms of doing business, you know.
That's great. That's great long-term objectives and goals that can be met with this trade, correct? But a country like Nigeria, which, like you mentioned, has trade deals with overseas countries, they stand to lose existing business. They stand to lose jobs from within the country. And so I can imagine why they're hesitant to sign this deal.
You see, the other thing which the international community does, you know, in terms of doing business with them, is they monopolize the system. I'll give an example how De Beers has controlled the diamonds in South Africa. They'll give you conditions that you can't buy or sell to any other country or continent or any other business entity. If you sell, then your dues is going to be cut. So these are some of the challenges where countries feel very difficult to do business within Africa because of the conditions, the existing clientele they have with them, that they can't do business with any other country. But, you know, these are some of the things on the signing of the contract where they say, no, this situation, you know, we've got a vast potential majority of business in Africa. You know, we can do business anywhere else. I mean, Africa must realize that they are the ones who's got the product. You know, they must be on the negotiating table as the owners of the business and not as employees of the business to set those policies, and those policies should stand the test of time. I mean, they shouldn't be dictated by the market. You know, they are selling the mine in the oil, they are doing whatever sorts of things, but unfortunately also oil prices are determined by the outside world. Nigeria doesn't have even a say on the prices.
Okay, and why do you think it is our president, President Cyril Ramaphosa, championing this trade deal? Why him? Why not Buhari? Why not any other African leader?
Yeah, you see, this is the biggest problem we have in African countries. It's because of the politicians that do not understand business. You know,
And Ramaphosa is a successful businessman.
he understands business, yes. They don't understand why they can't pay their salaries on time. They can't pay their hikes on salaries. We've heard about, we're having situations in South Africa as well as the rest of Africa in terms of workers demanding salary increments and whatever. You know, they do not understand that you can make money for the country apart from imposing taxes and revenue, you know, onto citizens and companies, but you can gain income and revenue from other businesses outside the country itself. Look at China. China's done very large investment outside China. The government itself does business. Most African countries, they don't do business. You know, they always look for investment. Even to manufacture a toothpick in African countries, they look for an investor to come and do that. So these are some of the things and areas where Africa must identify herself and say, some of these things we can do the challenges from ourselves and sit on the table as the owners of Africa and dictate the market. You know, there's a lot of challenges in trying to do business in Africa. You know, it's easy to import things from outside Africa than to send to do business within Africa because of the borders. There's a lot of borders. On average, on the border post for trucks to do business or to transact, because of the road networks, they spend a minimum of 24 hours. You know, so if a truck spends 24 hours on one border and they have to, as you're aware, Africa is mostly landlocked, you know. For them to go past 3-4 countries, they will spend almost 2 weeks for their goods to reach the market. And in that way, the cost of doing business goes higher because of the delays and the revenue. Corruption also moves in, because if you don't have money to give somebody by the customs official at the borders, you stay there at the border for the rest of your life. You know, these are some of the challenges, and lack of participation from the countries and also the regional communities. They've been trying all means to bring these countries together so that they can work in one go and build the infrastructure, invest into regional integration, rural and urban integration. You know, you find some situations where there's a surplus of cereals, maybe in Malawi or Zambia, but there's a deficit in South Africa and other parts of the African continent because of lack of integration. You know, that's why President Cyril Ramaphosa is calling for the boosting of this integration of business, entire business. You know, already the businesses has been going on in Africa. You are aware of South Africa importing water from Lesotho. You know, also electricity and other parts of the African continent. So that has to be boosted by developing the infrastructure.
Okay, all well said. I really appreciate your point of view. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty. A country like Nigeria would be sacrificing a lot. You mentioned their oil sales. What would South Africa be sacrificing by ratifying this deal? Hypothetically, tell me.
South Africa will sacrifice a bit, you know, in terms of...
A bit?
Yeah, just
a bit.
A bit, yes.
Okay.
You know, because South Africa needs, you know, to get a cheaper source of fuel, like petroleum. You know, you're aware of the fuel high prices which are affecting the citizens and the businesses, and that automatically affect the running of the economy. You know, but each and every country, you know, in the African continent must be willing and part and parcel to sacrifice something towards the common goal.
That is true, so, but certain countries are perhaps sacrificing a large amount of their income, and it's not fair. If you look at Museveni, President Yoweri Museveni, and his Burundi counterpart Pierre Nkurunziza, they're also skeptical. And I get that President Cyril Ramaphosa is a businessman, but like I said earlier, there's something about this trade deal that doesn't pass the sniff test. I think there's just more to it that these African leaders feel rubs them the wrong way?
Yes, there is some sense of ill thinking about each other, you know, lack of understanding of the objectives of what they want to achieve. You know, if they sit down once a month or once every 3 months to sit and try to restructure Africa, I mean, this has been done before. Africa does only about 18% of intra-Africa trade. If you talk about Europe, they do about almost 70%. North America, they do 52%. Asia, they do about 50%. You see, and this, the linking of Europe and Asia and also North America, it's highly sophisticated. You know, you can drive from one place to the other. I mean, I'll give an example to San Francisco. They had problems with linking another state, but they had to construct a bridge. Now in Kinshasa to Brazzaville, it takes longer, but it's the same distance. You know, so if you sit down and understand that the ideology that we are working towards a common goal, unemployment, poverty eradication, and also on, you know, countries or even other leaders who are not even business-minded, but if you teach them the ideology of common goal and objective that we want to achieve this will help your government. I think they will be part and parcel to come on the table to discuss and even sacrifice to invest into that entire African investment. You know, and one of the advantages which they can have is also when they build up a very good business profile, integration in Africa, you know, they can use that also to as a fund, as a bank, or, you know, to loan other countries who are doing very badly, you know, to support them so that they can reach that par, you know, and forget about bodies like International Monetary Fund where they get unnecessary interests.
All right, Mr., or should I say Dr. Charles Sinkala, political analyst, thank you once again for your insight and analysis. Always a pleasure and enlightening talking to you. For those of you watching, this is Afro Breakfast on Afro Worldview. We've got more news coming your way after the break. See you soon. Don't go away.